They say old soldiers never die, but in the case of 1992's Universal Soldier, old soldiers could just be soldiers who once died.
Emmerich was thinking big, big vision.
I was in a positive challenge at that time in my career.
Does that refresh your memory?
Having killed each other Rocky II style during the Vietnam War, two soldiers are brought back to life decades later by a secret illegal government project that resurrects the dead, injects them with superpower serum, and keeps them around as brainwashed mercenaries.
At that time, I was very shy even to kind of put my name on the script, but it opened a lot of doors.
For Universal Soldier's 30th birthday, it's time to look back at how the film gave us two action stars and a maestro of big screen global destruction. Billed as a showdown between the muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and the He-Man from Sweden, nope, that doesn't work, Dolph Lundgren, Universal Soldier was also the first big American studio film for Roland Emmerich, whose direct follow-up films would be Stargate and Independence Day.
It put me on the top. We did $112 million box office. At that time, it was huge. And then that's when my career took off, Then I made many movies back to back, because when I came in LA, it was not that easy for me. I didn't speak English, I didn't have a green card. It was hard, man. But I wanted to make movie, right? So it was cool.
With the title of Supreme 80s action hero fiercely traded back and forth by Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, martial artist Van Damme first made waves as a leading man with 1988's Bloodsport, which he followed up with Kickboxer, Cyborg, Lionheart, and Double Impact. Universal Soldier would be his biggest hit yet, though, featuring the best production value, stunts, and story up to that point.
The movie came from a producer, wonderful one. His name was Mario Cassar. He was the first independent producer who thought like a studio, who made those big movies. I came from the Canon movies.
I was actually hired to do a Stallone movie first. It was very chaotic and I decided to kind of drop out after 9 months. They tried to rescue the film, but they couldn't. And then I went to do a little producing project. I went into the desert, and then all of a sudden the call came, and Mario wanted to see me, and he offered me the Universal Soldier film, which by the way had a terrible script.
That the script needed work was not lost on the film's eventual co-star either. Dolph Lundgren, even with his advanced degrees in chemical engineering, was, at the time, the more established of the pair, but even with the prospect of teaming up with another up-and-coming action star, he knew the idea wasn't there yet.
Okay, originally it was called Crystal Knights. I was pitched to, co-star with Jean-Claude Van Damme, who was some martial artist who I vaguely had heard about. So they hired another screenwriter, and then they brought on this a German director who had done a movie called Moon 44.
Emmerich and his writing partner, Dean Devlin, who would also write and produce Emmerich's Stargate, Independence Day, and The Patriot, basically reshaped the script from scratch.
And I say it's very, very simple. We have at the beginning them killing each other. And then they're the body backs get zipped closed. 30 years later, we see them as these robots, human robots, follow orders.
At this point in Dolph Lundgren's career, he'd already portrayed one of the most hated villains in movie history with Rocky IV's Ivan Drago, and then gone on to be the first live-action He-Man in 1987's Masters of the Universe, and the first live-action Frank Castle in 1989's The Punisher. Action movie stars colliding in one movie, going toe-to-toe, wasn't as prevalent as you might think back during this era. So for Van Damme and Lundgren to not only share the screen but also face off against one another was a big draw. It wouldn't be until after this that we'd get Stallone versus Snipes in Demolition Man, Cage versus Travolta in Face Off, Freddy versus Jason, Alien versus Predator, you get the drift. For Lundgren, it was a chance to break out of his serious, stoic roles and have a crack at playing someone tonally different.
I really embraced that character. I thought he was well written. You had a certain compassion for the character and understanding of where he came from, but at the same time, he was dangerous and kind of unhinged. So it was a positive challenge at that time in my career. Where I played Ivan Drago, obviously, was kind of a classic bad guy, and then you had Masters, more a kids movie. I did Red Scorpion, and I'd done The Punisher as well. It wasn't a serious character. I mean, I had fun playing this guy, and I wanted the audience to have fun watching Andrew Scott kind of, rampage through this picture.
A rampage that included a necklace made of ears.
I think it was in the script originally. I think it was based on truth. I mean, soldiers in Vietnam, I guess, it was at least rumored had used necklaces and things like that, and taken pieces of the enemy bodies, in a gruesome fashion. And obviously my character is kind of damaged from serious PTSD from multiple tours in Nam, I'm sure. So it kind of made the character a little more memorable.
You just can't walk away, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
I think it made some of the jokes a little more visual, because you can relate to something, telling the line, not just words, but it relates to the character and the background of the character. Obviously, the ear necklace was used later in the picture, but if the audience probably remembered where it came from, the opening in Vietnam, where we were both normal people.
The full introduction of the Universal Soldiers, or Unisols as they're referred to, took the cast and crew to the Hoover Dam for a very precarious stunt.
The rappelling down of the Hoover Dam was my favorite, because it was so odd and weird, and you know what I mean? And that they go forward, down, and it was like kind of two stunt guys. It was really, really good, and they were like very, very close looking to them.
I did the last part of it, coming off the wall at the end. My stunt double did the full stunt, and he got stuck, and Van Damme's stunt double, who was an ex-Navy SEAL, went down to get him, because the guy was stuck halfway down. It's probably like 1,000-foot drop or something, and the line, the rappelling line, had curled around one of his fingers, but he didn't know that. When he got my double loose and they started rappelling down, it took his finger clean off. Those back in the day, where you had to actually send people down the dam. Now, of course, you'd be on a sound station and a green screen, but in those days you couldn't do that. It had to be in camera.
The stunt team, however, was not discouraged. The prospect of losing fingers aside, and even some of the actors got a chance to get in on the action.
Jean-Claude and I had stunt doubles, but the other guys had a choice if they could go and do the stunt themselves, and they got the stunt adjustment, which I think was $5,000 or something. So a lot of the actors decided to do it. And, there were a couple of choppers involved to shoot it. And Vic Armstrong, who's an old school stunt coordinator, said, you guys, when I tell you to go, you got to go. But obviously, when you get up there and you look down and it's 1,000 feet down into the water, I think one or two of these guys didn't feel like going. But I think Vic's boot and the backside convinced them and actually got them flying. You can actually see some of them. You can tell like they're not really ready to go out that chopper, but he sent them out anyway, his way.
I like the Hoover Dam, but I like that fight scene when I just want to eat, when the guy's hungry.
I just want to eat.
Per JCVD, to pull off some of the action highlights, however, putting actors on the other end of intricately choreographed kicking and punching just wouldn't cut it.
So there were all stunt people in that coffee shop. So a guy like me, I was very precise with my legs. It was so fast and so cool. You don't have to rehearse much. Those guys, they know how to take a punch and they know how to react. Because basically, when you do an action scene, the stunt guy he's the one who's doing the action, If you punch him, he will react to the action. And so he's the guy who's making you strong in a sense, And then you can hit them a little, You can just have a light contact. So even if we shoot on a profile way, and if the contact is, it just, you go with the punch. It looks so real. So you had the sound, it looked very cool. It was nice.
But interest in the film coalescing into something badass was not limited to its stars, director, or nine-fingered stuntmen. The film even earned a set visit from the big kahuna himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I did a movie called Double Impact, and that's when Arnold is a competitor in his blood, and he said, who's that new guy in town, right? So he came for that, and also he came for his friend. It was cool.
Yep, Arnold was a fan of Double Impact. But on top of becoming required viewing for action movie enthusiasts, Universal Soldier was the first in a series of films that helped establish the Roland Emmerich formula, a particular brand of relatable but bonkers science fiction.
Well, I've always kind of had an idea for science fiction movies, but most of the time they took place in real time, in present day. So this was kind of the idea of Stargate. It was the idea of Independence Day or Godzilla, and I always liked to put them in present day.
Universal Soldier would go on to become a franchise, with 3 more movies unspooling over the next 3 decades, all starring Van Damme and 2 of them also featuring Lundgren. But the original still stands tall as an early 90s action classic, delivering everything a blockbuster should: thrills, spills, and chills, with a few jokes mixed in for good measure.
That's like a sign of a Roland Emmerich movie. I mean, if you cannot laugh about things, don't do movies. I have the feeling. I'm always kind of believe that if you cannot laugh with your characters, you don't like them really.
Where are your clothes?
I have to cool down.